And now, a welcome to the AVN special coverage of the State of the Union.
My friend's gonna introduce you. Is that okay?
That is all right.
Okay, I'm passing you over to my friend.
Good.
Yeah. Say it.
Madam Speaker, the President of the United States.
There you go. Well, everyone rise.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and your lovely call out person. That's quite nice.
Thank you. That was my friend Danny.
Thank you, Danny. Are we set to begin, Madam Speaker?
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, and my fellow Americans, it is my duty to present to you all the state of our union. It's hard to believe that I have had the honor of serving this nation for over 6 months now. And while that may show a new level of stability, we have had no lack of progress during this time. My first State of the Union I delivered in September of 2024, and this had 3 main topics. Firstly, our success in foreign affairs, the reemergence of activity in the legislative branch, and most notably, the ending call to action, addressed to the old and new generation of NUSA. I called upon the new generation to recognize their importance in this community's longevity and henceforth asked for the old generation to understand that our time is up. It's time to train the next group of leaders to take over. And I believe now is the time to revisit the progress made and outline the plans to come. I'm delighted to say that I do believe NUSA heard the call to action. It's without a doubt that we can say we have witnessed the transition of power occur. Personally, only one original cabinet member of mine remains, God bless our Director of National Intelligence, Fuzz Mike 11, with almost all other cabinet members being from the new generation of players. It's because of the guidance given by those of us departing from this community that has empowered these individuals to rise up. So to both groups, I would like to express my sincerest thank you. While we're on the topic of departures, I do find it necessary to speak on the recent heightened level of retirements and provide insight on what this means for our nation. To put it plainly, NUSA has been through a lot recently. For only the 3rd time in our 12-year history, we have seen a change of ownership, followed by a slew of promises and expectations. Thus, I do not find it shocking that some members have left. It's always unfortunate to see those of us depart, but I urge you all to recognize the demographic of players who left. These were old generation players who have contributed to this group for many years. They've already left their mark on the community, and their departure is necessary to make way for those yet to rise. I believe it's also important to note the amount of newcomers we have welcomed since the new ownership. In fact, the White House had to establish an entirely new office just to house the intense influx of interns we received. Needless to say, NUSA has had no shortage of new members, and it has been extremely rewarding to see those new members take on and excel in high positions. And now to speak on the changes and advancements that together we have accomplished since September. To start with the judicial branch, stemming from matters beyond our control, we were given a lifeless and empty judiciary, and it suddenly became the job of the administration to single-handedly revive the courts, and that we did. Today, there are 23 open and active cases being settled in our district court, with the Supreme Court also publicly hearing 2 merits cases. Beyond their caseload, the Supreme Court has also been hard at work rewriting the entire federal rules of criminal and civil procedure to become more accessible for NUSA members, with simplified wording and inclusion of only articles that are relevant to NUSA. This rebranding of the judiciary has made interacting with the courts easier than ever before, allowing all players, regardless of legal experience, the chance to get involved with the judiciary. of course. I also must speak on the multitude of triumphs from the executive branch as well, stemming from domestic and foreign affairs, the military, and the complete overhaul of the executive. To put it plainly, we completely redefined how the executive branch works, creating a new degree of efficiency and effectiveness within our departments. Through agency and department consolidations, we have already seen increased productivity within our law enforcement agencies. The responsibilities of the Bureau of Prison employees were expanded under the U.S. Marshal Services. The Federal Protective Service merged into the Defense Force Protection Agency to augment the allocation of the agency's law enforcement powers. And the Coast Guard officially took on the role of National Guard to solidify their presence in D.C. These changes have killed redundancy in the executive branch and replaced a multitude of ambiguous agencies with a select few elite and defined agencies. Now, I cannot continue without recognizing a huge accomplishment since the last State of the Union. We won a war. Our Israeli allies' border was under siege by terrorist organizations in the region, and immediately the executive and legislative branch worked together to deploy the United States military to Israel. And within a few weeks, we completely squashed the threats. The military displayed its unmatched capabilities with almost 200 unique personnel deployed to Erez Crossing throughout the course of the conflict. And as Commander-in-Chief, nothing brings me more joy than seeing the success of our troops in pursuit of global security. Speaking of international affairs, I of course must speak to the Department of State, who has conducted a grand total of 177 state visits, meeting with 52 unique nations. To put it into perspective, these numbers have not been even nearly achieved in the past 5 years. At the start of my first term, there were a total of 2 nations who had diplomatic ties within NUSA. Thus, reflecting on these statistics now should prove to you all how successful our State Department has been in these past 6 months. Furthermore, for the first time in history, NUSA has secured stability in the international community. This administration proved again NUSA is a powerhouse nation on the international stage. We helped found the new United Nations, which is a community aimed at empowering the genre of row nations and providing a mutually beneficial space for groups to thrive. The explosive growth of this United Nations is a great example of the foreign policy accountability this administration takes seriously. And I have to thank the recently departed Secretary of State, Gentleman Jalix, for his devotion to a stable and flourishing United Nations. His commitment to the founding of the UN greatly impacted its continued success. Now to shift topics, as many of you may know, we succeeded in passing the largest goal on our legislative agenda just a month ago, which included the complete reworking of the executive branch, with some of those aforementioned changes included. This overhaul includes a new definition of the Department of Homeland Security to establish accountability and oversight in all federal agencies. In addition, this change balances out the power of the Attorney General with the power of the Secretary of Homeland Security to make both roles more optimized for NUSA. We've already begun to see some of these advancements, with the newly appointed Secretary of Homeland Security, Wintertail, making great progress in advising and assisting agencies. Although these changes do not begin to cover all that we have done under this administration, I take great enjoyment from reflecting on what we have achieved. None of this would have been possible without the trust of the community, so to each of you here tonight and those who will watch later, thank you. And so now, you all must be wondering what is to come in these last 2 months. And as I first addressed in my second inauguration speech, the greatest benchmark that is yet to be fully attained is the complete modernization of NUSA and preparation for the imminent release of DC-3. We have recently announced, and will unveil this weekend, the release of the Common Application, which will be a centralized bot where citizens can submit an application for the government in 4 general categories, so that all department heads may review these applications and streamline hiring. I believe that this new automation method of hiring will provide easy access to employment for new players And with it being through Discord, this process is extremely accessible. The Department of Commerce and Labor will work intensively in these next few weeks to secure the status of the Common App and ensure its longevity so that it may be a widely used tool for many administrations to come. The White House has also recently opened the Office of Community Engagement to replace the recently disbanded group management-run Community Engagement Team. This office will ensure that the government has a large focus on game activity and will start with a goal of 5 to 7 in-game events per week. And this is not including the ever so loved server startups. And they also will take on the role of group outreach to make sure that the community is up to date on all government happenings. All of these future tasks come back to one main collective goal within NUSA, and that is again to prepare ourselves for DC3. The administration has received occasional updates on its progress, and we have full faith that the new ownership will expedite and complete this goal in the near future. Although I may not be present during this time, it's important that we use this term to gear our community for this modernization. With the introduction of a modern game comes the need of a modernized community to fully accept and implement these changes. While the empowerment of the new generation, consolidation and increased government efficiency, and heightened accessibility may greatly help with this transition, it ultimately comes down to you, the player base in which it serves, to prepare for what is to come. Thus, tonight, I'll ask of you one simple request, and that is to not be fearful of changes approaching our community. It is a far too common NUSA phenomenon to reject change to maintain the status quo, even while modernization overcame other communities around us. In NUSA, I must tell you, we do not have the choice of hiding anymore. Modernization is at our doorstep, and we should graciously welcome its entry. I fear much for our community will be in for a startling wake-up call when that day inevitably arrives. Much of the administration is working towards this larger goal, so now it is my duty to ask of you to assist us in this process. So, as we close out, I will leave you with these parting thoughts to the community. Never be afraid to share your ideas, embrace what is yet to come, and help build your future. Amen. God bless, and thank you.
Whoa, that was beautiful, Madam President.
Thank
Can
you,
everyone
Madam
stand?
Speaker.
Everyone's standing up.
The deep state's mission is nearly complete. The streets of DC, empty, lifeless, devoid of the spirit that once defined our nation. The branches of government, dead. The Senate, a rubber stamp. The courts, filled with yes men who protect their own. And the so-called president, standing before us, boasting about her so-called accomplishments that have dismantled NUSA piece by piece. She brags about abolishing the Bureau of Prisons, handing its control over to the U.S. Marshal Service through an unconstitutional order. She gifted the Department of Transportation because she was too incompetent to run it. He created the so-called Defense Force Protection Agency, made-up agency, doing the jobs of real law enforcement while the streets fall into chaos. He has signed unconstitutional bills that expand her power while giving positions to corrupt, unqualified allies. She ignores the military because she doesn't like them. She prosecutes families like the Yatta family, forcing them out of their homes. She persecutes patriots like Schenck, forcing him to flee. One by one, she silences those who dare to stand against her. And now, she expects us to sit here and clap? This is not leadership. This is tyranny. She is a deep state puppet with the aim of destroying NUSA. NSA was built on resistance. It was built by those who stood up and said, no more. And I say to you now, no more. We will not sit back while our nation is dismantled. We will not be fooled by hollow speeches and empty words. We will fight. We will take back NUSA. We will restore what was stolen from us. The time for speeches is over. We are coming, and nothing will stop us, patriots. It's time to fight back. The Forward Party will put an end to this wannabe dictator and her propaganda. We call everyone who wants to fix NUSA to work with us and ignore the desires of the president of turning USA into North Korea. Thank you. God bless you, and God save Noosa from the deep state.
Is that as I've noticed between this beef that I've been covering the last month, the Pioneer Party and the Forward Party have been going back and forth, some with legitimate claims, some with not, conspiracy theories and all. But what I would like to say, and I've tweeted about this earlier, that going into the next few months, the last few months of T-Soup's term here and the presidential election, I believe that all of Noosa should come together and stop worrying about conspiracy theories and stop worrying about committing all these acts to get more power and just start doing what's best for this community. Because as T Soups has said, that this community needs to come into the future, and this community also needs to become less toxic and needs to become more welcoming. Because if we stay in the past and we try to prevent the inevitable, it's only going to make the situation for Noosa activity and just the longevity of Noosa worse. So what I would like to say is, please, anyone listening in this audience who is a lawmaker, anyone listening who has any sort of power to make laws, or anyone who votes, please let your representatives know to start working with each other and start reaching across the aisle, because we need some more bipartisanship and less negativity.